Hey everyone, this is Robert,
And this is Daniel.
and today we are gonna brainstorm a character, and we wanted to invite everyone to listen in on it and kind of our creative process. So the character that we have decided to talk about is dubbed the Nurse. So Daniel, did you have any initial thoughts on the character, what she should be like? And as you can see on the image, she's holding this artifact. So let's start there.
Yeah, sure. Viewers might notice this is the Morning Star that we talked about previously in one of our episodes of Inspiral Gaming Weekly. And so the character, the nurse, she's kind of bloodied in the artwork. She has the Morning Star, and she's looking down at what I assume would be a patient because she's kind of going in through the curtains that you might see at a hospital. So it seems like she's kind of bloodthirsty. That's what I would expect from her. And maybe she's not quite sane anymore. The look on her face looks kind of like she's been through a lot at this point.
Yeah.
So basically, from her story, I would expect something with a lot of trials and tribulations. But before we get into the actual storytelling aspect of this brainstorming session, I kind of wanted to ask you, can we go over what it is the nurse does in the game?
Yeah, so most characters will always have a passive and active ability. And hers, now she starts with this artifact, the Morning Star, and whenever she makes a melee attack and misses, she can choose to lose some of her sanity to try again, essentially. Make that same melee attack. And it won't cost her an extra action point. Her other ability is an action where it's more supportive role. And she cannot do it if she is insane. So the more she uses her passive ability, she can't do this active, which is to choose either herself or another guest in her space. And she can heal that guest 1 health and remove status effects like stunned.
So her character is kind of built around using this Morning Star and then balancing her sanity, it seems.
Yeah. She really is trying to balance her sanity, and she doesn't actually have an inherent way to keep her sanity up, so it's more of a resource that she has to manage, but can use if she really needs to, beat someone down. That being said, her actual stats, we've got strength, defense, perception, wit, nerves, and speed. She's not very strong. She's not very defensive. So actual melee attacks are relatively difficult for her without other things bolstering those stats. But her wit and her nerves are very high. So essentially, because her nerves are high, when she's faced with the monster, it'll be a lot easier for her to avoid losing sanity just from facing the monster. But she can willingly choose to kind of delve into this deeper, more primal form of herself, where she just kind of goes crazy and beats someone. And she can if she misses, she can try again. So
Pretty sure I have that ability too.
Yeah, most people do. We call that anger, lashing out, one might say. So that's kind of her kit, if you will.
Okay, so while we're at this, can you remind me what exactly the Morning Star does? I know you mentioned that she can get another chance to attack if she misses her melee attack, but is there anything else to it?
So her ability to attack when she misses is something that's her. She can use any melee weapon for that. She starts with the Morning Star, which it's a 2-handed, really heavy weapon, which in the image it looks like she's struggling to hold it up. It isn't very strong at first, so all it does is it bolsters your damage by 1 when you hit on a melee combat. But with every monster or guest you kill, or servant even, it becomes permanently stronger. So the verbiage here is this deals an additional plus X damage to health in melee combat, where X equals the number of soul tokens on Morningstar. If this kills a unit, you'll heal 2 health, and you put the soul token onto the Morningstar. However, it is capped at 4. So after 4 kills, you've maxed out, dealing plus 5 damage on this weapon, this two-handed weapon. And it's also it's a cursed artifact melee weapon. So she's starting with something very strong.
Okay, I can see how that would combo well with her being able to get another melee attack off of her own basic ability. It wasn't the Morningstar, so I misspoke. My bad. Just to be clear, does that apply to any kill that she makes? Like, it could be a person kill or a player kill, rather,
exactly,
or a monster kill?
Any kill.
All right, well, I think that leaves us with a good base for what we can explore in the actual story. Because first we can talk about how she got this Morningstar at the beginning of the story. Because I'm assuming she's not a nurse that just carries around a Morningstar in her normal day life.
You
she
don't?
could be. I'm not judging or anything.
You mean they don't?
Not the ones that I've met, but
okay.
I just haven't met the right nurses yet.
I see.
Or wrong nurses. I don't know if that's actually something I want.
I guess it depends on how this story develops.
Yeah, maybe it's actually a medical tool.
It's possible. I'm not a medical doctor. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, me neither. I don't have a degree in medical sciences or anything like that. So, hey, if anybody does and is listening to this, then you can feel free to correct us on whether or not a Morningstar is a medical tool.
Yeah. If it's a common instrument for helping patients cope with their head injuries.
So yeah, we can explore how she got the Morningstar, and then how she got from getting the Morningstar to where she is in the state of this picture, where she is covered in blood. I'm assuming it's not her blood. She doesn't look like she's been beat up too much, except for the whole frayed hair strands all over, and her face looking like she's been through hell. But other than that, she looks pretty good. I mean, there's no chunks of her missing or anything like that.
Nope. I guess you could say it was a very successful attack. And perhaps this image is after she's healed a bit from it.
That's possible too.
So yeah, let's dive into that. How did she get this Morningstar?
I'm completely perplexed as to how she got the Morningstar. In reality.
Right. So maybe what we can do is, so a lot of these other stories have weird Kafkaesque instances where things are because they are, and it doesn't quite make sense, but this is something that is just kind of a not really a known fact, but rather a fact that people come to accept, and then the story moves on. Not to say that, she just happens to have it, but a lot of these stories that have been written for the lore of this game, certain things occur without a total explanation. So perhaps the nurse just found it, I mean, as cheesy as finding it in a dumpster or a pawn shop even, maybe. Maybe it was a gift by someone who she doesn't know. But one way or another, the way all of these character bios, these lore, end up is how did they get to the mansion. So perhaps this Morningstar is a tool that caused her to dig deeper, and she found this mansion and is now in the mansion with a magical weapon and still in her scrubs. So are
you suggesting that this room that she's in right here is in the mansion?
I am neither suggesting for or against that. It is totally possible. But one way or another, what we have here is a story about a character who finds their way to a mansion, this supernatural mansion. and she has this artifact, and we need to figure out how to get those two pieces of the puzzle to fit.
So I've had a bit of an idea here. So she's looking, like I mentioned before, she's looking down at what I would assume would be a patient because of the style of the portrait. Maybe there's something in her head that's calling to her. Like maybe it's a child's voice or something, a patient that she's had before, that she's treated, and she's hearing it call to her no matter where she's at, and she's trying to follow it, and it's the mansion calling to her. So she's going through maybe her work, maybe some other place, trying to find this, and one of the doors that she travels through takes her to the mansion.
Okay, so we have perhaps she has some kind of mental issue. Whether it's a traumatizing event that keeps repeating in her brain and then starts to kind of cause her to hallucinate, or maybe it's an outside force that is compelling her to do certain things and react certain ways, by maybe, changing what she actually sees. Maybe a very kind elderly patient looks like a demon to her and she beats him to a pulp. Maybe it actually is a demon and she doesn't know why it's there. So that's an interesting. So what do you think we can go with? Hallucinations or something calling to her, something magical affecting her psyche.
Well, I mean, we've already talked about how she can, attack again at the expense of her sanity. So if we have something early on where she's maybe in a fight with something, she can lose her sanity that way, and that can, as she progresses through the story, she can lose more and more sanity, and that's where the hallucinations and stuff come in.
And it perpetuates how she gets there.
Yeah, basically. So maybe just some everyday fight happens. Maybe like somebody tries to mug her or something.
I like that idea, because that's exactly what I was thinking about. Maybe she was getting mugged and she just defended herself and killed the person or something, or severely wounded.
It could be something like she was defending herself, and then as she went to swing her hand, the Morning Star was in her hand out of nowhere, and she clubbed him in the head, and he died. And maybe it's something like she didn't even realize she picked it up, or that it had been there this whole time. Like you said, it's Kafkaesque. It's something that just appears. Something that isn't really explained. It's just taken for granted that it happens.
I see.
Like maybe she actually found this or saw it at some point and didn't realize she had picked it up because she was blocking that or something in her mind. I don't know. I'm trying to.
So here's an idea that I'm having right now. So what if we take this story structure, the elementary structure of this story, and chop it, right? So maybe the story doesn't start linearly. Oh, she mugs somebody, or somebody mugs her rather, and she beats her muggers. And then she has some kind of scene in a hospital where she's a little less sane, and then again this Morning Star is used against the patient, and then eventually finds the mansion. Instead of having this kind of linear structure, what we could do is maybe it's the story is her having a conversation with, who knows, maybe she's like, breaking the wall here and talking to the players, but doesn't, everyone else thinks she's insane, and she kind of is. So she perhaps can start where she is walking towards the mansion, like she can see it in the distance, and she's recollecting these different things, like still questioning herself. How did this happen? How did I get here? How did I obtain this horrific object? We can chop this story into different pieces, because I would think that would actually exemplify an insane person's thoughts. They would be jumbled. They wouldn't be linear. They wouldn't be, A, B, C, and D. They would be, some abstract order. So perhaps even within the story, maybe she realizes how she got the Morning Star, and that's the last thought she has before the story ends. And she actually remembers then how she got it. But you know, the players and the readers wouldn't know until that very last moment. What do you think of that?
The person that she's talking to is the person that she has killed with the Morning Star.
That would be interesting, and that would be something that we, that's really cool, because I mean, essentially the Morning Star is sucking out their soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Morning Star itself is speaking to her in her head. Every person she's killed.
Awesome.
It's an interesting concept.
Maybe what's going on is she's talking to a patient about how her day has been, how everything's gone crazy since she got mugged, and then she realizes that she killed her patient, and the patient hasn't been talking to her this whole time. It's actually been the Morning Star speaking to her through the patient's voice.
So that would be an interesting climactic event at the very end.
Yes, exactly.
She realizes, oh my god, I'm talking to myself and this thing in my hand.
Yeah, that would be the picture.
Okay, cool. I like that. In which case, that would probably be her in the mansion then, this image.
Yeah.
And maybe this image could be beyond the story. This image could be that maybe in game, let's say, because I want to make this a cohesive game, lore as well as gameplay. So maybe this particular scene isn't written in the story, but rather it could be perceived as that. But also in the infirmary, which is a room in the game, maybe she beats another guest, like in game. I'm the nurse and you're some other character, and I beat you with it, and I kill you, and this is exactly how it would feel for her. This image. So there's a lot of things we could play with for this image. I like the idea of the Morning Star speaking to her the whole time, in a conversation. So having it more as a dialogue story than some of the other ones, which have a more third-person feel to it. So let's go with that, and let's figure out, where does the story start?
Well, I would imagine the story would have to start with her beginning the conversation with, if we're going with the fact that she's talking to maybe one of her patients that became a victim. Maybe she's talking with the patient, if like I said before, she could be saying, I've had this terrible day, starting with my mugging, and then she talks about that, and then the Morning Star, in the vein of responding through the patient, would respond to that, and she'd continue on with her story, and then maybe somewhere down the line she goes, and then I saw you there, and she talks about how she had this thought about how she killed her or something like that.
Like a strange dream or something.
Yeah, like I had this strange dream that, and you were there, and Toto the dog was there, and I killed him, and I killed you, and oh wait, right? Why does your head look like it's been bashed in?
Your teeth are everywhere.
Yeah, it's
like a Red Riding Hood.
Yeah. Why does your head look so caved in?
Why are your teeth everywhere? Perfect.
Better to remind you that you killed me, my dear.
Sounds like we have a story. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. That progression. So I think what are the most pinnacle aspects of her life that she's recounting here? The mugging and her strange dream, and I think we should also include how she actually got the Morning Star itself. Maybe towards the end, before she realizes she's talking to it rather than a person, she's hallucinating the person's there. Maybe the person whom she thinks she's talking to asks her, well, how did you get this? And then she starts recounting that, and that leads her up to realizing she's talking to herself, essentially.
I had a thought, what if her dream is that someone else had killed the patient, and they were holding that morning star, or she found the morning star like over the body, and she picked it up, and then she realizes that she wasn't watching a stranger do it, she was watching herself do it.
Interesting.
Or it doesn't even have to be that patient, it could be maybe she saw somebody else doing it and she took it because she was trying to figure out, or she tried maybe to resuscitate the person, but obviously you can't resuscitate a caved-in head.
Right, it's pretty hard, I've heard. So I like the idea that she didn't kill the patient. I like the idea because that reinforces the actual gameplay, where if, let's say, she kills 2 people with it and now it's at a +2, and then someone kills her and takes it from her, that still has those +2, so those souls are still there. So I think it would be interesting if someone else had this weapon, killed this person whom used to be her patient maybe, and then in this horrific event she's trying to revive the person, the killer ran away, and she the killer dropped the weapon or something, and so she picked it up. And this horrific event that she tried to save this person, even though in vain, obviously, it kind of blocked it out of her mind to like sometimes happens in a traumatic event. So she blocks this scene out of her mind, and then it only gets she remembers it towards the end when she realizes that she's talking to a ghost, essentially.
Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. It's also, if we bring in that somebody else was using the Morningstar before her, we could also bring in the idea that there are some memories that she is recalling through her conversation with this ghost of her patient that maybe aren't actually hers, like maybe something that the other person had done.
Yeah, but she's like putting herself into it to like protect her own mind or something, or doesn't
it would be something
it.
Like the Morningstar was like the ghosts that are inside the Morningstar were talking to her, and she was thinking, like, since she's been kind of losing it throughout the day, that she was thinking that it was something that she did, but it wasn't actually. It's just a way to introduce more story to it.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's really cool, because then she's questioning which of my memories are real. At the end. And it's
definitely an avenue to explore, to impose that she might not be altogether there, even more so, to play with the fragile psyche of somebody that who has
going insane.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've got a story,
at least the beginnings of one.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just reiterate the main points of this story so far. We brought up that she will probably be talking to the ghost of her patient throughout the story, and it's kind of like a discussion of what's happened to her till she got to this point. So it will be, the beginning of the story will actually be the current part of the timeline, and then she'll go back through flashbacks, basically, to explain how she got back to where she is now. So the main first part of it seems to be the mugging. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think we're going to start talking about the mugging, where she experiences, or thinks she experiences, that she was mugged and somehow had this weapon and defended herself and killed her assailants.
Okay. So we go for the mugging. Maybe we talk about her seeing her patient. She has a vision or a dream of her patient being attacked. The Morningstar is present in that fight. Maybe she picks it up then. Maybe it was her actually attacking her. Maybe it was the person who had it before. And we might go through that avenue of exploring a person who had it before, and maybe some spirits that are trapped inside the Morningstar before twisting her vision of what had happened to her, because she might be hearing voices from this other person's escapades since they had the Morning Star.
Yeah.
And then, did we decide if we were going to have it be her actually killing her patient or the other person?
Not sure actually. It could go either way, and that would be an interesting question to ask all of you. What do you think that should have happened? Did she kill her patient? Did she experience it through someone else's eyes? It's an interesting question to answer.
I mean, this whole thing could actually be the Morning Star telling her what somebody else did with it before. I mean, maybe she wasn't even mugged. Maybe she was seeing somebody else actually die to the mugger or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of ways to go with it, so it would be interesting to hear what people think, how the story should go, what they like about what we've discussed already. I mean, we haven't written it yet at this point, so there's still room for things to be changed. So yeah, it's wide open, and input would be great. We could definitely use some to steer it in the way that everybody would enjoy, because I mean, ultimately this is something for our players and our listeners to experience, so why not have some input?
Right. And remember, ultimately this story is about how she got to the mansion, and how she obtained this item. And so any of the wildest suggestions that we get, we will gladly consider, because this is a very wild and strange game and story behind the game. So if you just happened upon this video and you like what you heard, you can check us out on our website or on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Look up Inspiral Gaming. www.inspiralgaming.com will lead you to all of our social media accounts. This will eventually be posted onto our website. It'll also be posted on our social media, and give us a like, give us some comments, share it with your friends. Let us know if you enjoyed this, and if you have any input, how you would like the story to go.
Yeah, build your own adventure, guys.
Yeah, go to page 22 if you want this character to have beaten her patient. Otherwise, go to page 57.
Exactly.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, and Daniel, thanks for having me and brainstorming with me.
Of course, anytime.